Since the Los Angeles Olympics, the Boomers have quietly gained a strong reputation on the international basketball scene. In this game against the Soviets last year in the World Championships in Spain, the Australian side proved its tenacity and ability. Now the race is on to qualify for the 1988 Seoul Olympics. A 5-game Wang International Challenge against the American Big East, a team made up of players from the top sides in the USA's college competition, is seen as good preparation in that Olympic campaign. National coach Adrian Hurley says from the Wang Challenge, the Boomers will come up against the visiting Soviets in August. Then it's all on to win the Oceania competition to qualify for the trip to Seoul.
Where we do usually handle the American teams is our experience, and of course we have the home court advantage, and Newcastle people have always been very supportive to us, and I think those two things, and plus we've got to go after it, we've got to be aggressive and get out and play some good defence. If we do that, then we can come away with a win.
Australian basketball's come a long way, hasn't it, in the last couple of years since the last Olympics? What are you foreseeing, say, into the 1990s?
I see, through my work at the Institute of Sport, I see a lot of good young juniors coming through from the influence of the NBL and the profile the sport is getting. So I don't see the sport plateauing out. I see it kicking on tremendously, and I think that in 1990 and 1992, the Boomers, the Wang Boomers, are going to be an infinitely better side than they are now. So I can see it. I can see the sport still continuing on that boom for quite a few years to come. To be an infinitely better side than they are now. So I can see it. I can see the sport still continuing on that boom for quite a few years to come.
The anti-sub destroyer was shrouded in thick fog as it made its way through the heads. Its crew took the opportunity while in port to re-equip following exercises with the Royal Australian Navy. When the Spruance-class destroyer arrived in Newcastle last Friday, a group of protesters was on hand, claiming the nuclear-capable vessel posed a threat to people's safety. But throughout the week, hundreds of well-wishers took time out to inspect the Elliott. Some spectators also gathered in the cold and fog of early morning to farewell the destroyer.
A group of investors headed by Barry Wilson of Warners Bay wants to build a recreational marina on the stretch between the Rathmines Jetty and Stilling Street. The initial development would include 120 berths, car parking, but no slipway or boat storage facilities. The group has yet to submit a development application to council, but is hoping to win over residents with the promise of sympathetic treatment of adjoining parkland and $100,000 a year in income to the council. Rathmines is also one of 3 sites being considered by the Public Works Department for a marina on Lake Macquarie. The others are at Crowders Bay and Bolton Point. For each of these developments, there would be at least 300 berths.
Space.
But both of these plans are meeting with opposition from lake residents.
No, we don't want to see any marina there at all, or on any other public open space land in Lake Macquarie.
A delegation of interested groups met this morning with member for Lake Macquarie, Merv Hunter. He was presented with a petition from 1,800 people opposed to the development of open space on the foreshore. Merv Hunter promised to support their call for council rezoning.
The point is that there's been a mistake made in the original rezoning of this land, and I wish to God that somebody would decide in the council that the mistake has been made, and it's about time that it's been zoned back to public open space.
The question of whether Rathmines should be the site of a new marina reared its head again today. A delegation met with the local member, Merv Hunter, with a petition opposing any moves. I'm John Church. I'll have that story tonight. For all the news,
Join us tonight
at 6. NIB had to break new legislative ground in paving the way for the registration of the Innovative Centre, which it established at a cost of $1 million. Mr Price was assisted today by the widow of Frank Smith, long-term chairman of NIB, in whose honour the centre has been named. The member for Waratah described it as a milestone in the provision of medical services in the Lower Hunter. The principle is this: patients arrive, change and go straight into theatre, where they are anaesthetised and the operation performed. The day hospital is capable of performing up to half the range of such services available in ordinary inpatient hospitals. The capacity is 70 patients a week, with its efficiency produced because it's highly specialised. NIB's General Manager Colin Rogers says this diversification by his organisation is its way of helping control the rising cost of healthcare without compromising quality. Mr Rogers said because NIB is a non-profit organisation, the approach to promoting the hospital will be different.
NIB Health Funds, as we've said, is non-profit. The hospital we expect to run in its own right, viably in its own right. We won't be running it perhaps along the same entrepreneurial lines as you might expect in some instances. Certainly that won't be the case with us. We'll be running it for the benefit of our members, and also, of course, it's open to the general public to use the facility.
The Visitors Centre was named after local Dr Temple Kiley, who has been a researcher with the Department of Agriculture for 40 years. The complex cost a total of $1.2 million and is ideally situated at Gosford, where 75% of nursery production in the state occurs within a 100-kilometre radius. Agriculture Minister Mr. Hallam says the station not only helps in researching disease control, it also has a fruit and vegetable variety improvement program.
We are currently breeding new varieties of tomatoes, for example, and in other areas we are developing native ornamental species such as the Geraldton wax, and we have scientists of international repute, men who are regarded as top of their field by any standard anywhere in the world, working here on disease control. For example, Mr. Temple Kiley, whom that
When the issue first arose, residents soon banded together to try and quash the proposal. Last night, 70 members of the Bolton Point Marmong Point Progress Association attended the Lake Macquarie City Council meeting armed with placards and banners. The council's decision was to support the Senior Development Control Unit's recommendation of granting BHP consent to construct the mine ventilation shaft and exhaust fan facility. The council also added that the Minister for Planning and Environment hold a public inquiry into long wall mining. A notice of rescission motion was then moved, setting the item back until next Monday for a final decision. If the rescission motion is then lost, the council's decision will stand, but if it's carried, the proposal will then have to wait 3 months before going to council again.
Hello, I'm Jane Button. Tonight I'll be reporting on an industrial problem brewing at the Saxon Vale mine. Newcastle Wallsend are set to take over the mine early next week and are asking employees to sign what have become controversial acceptance notices.
For all the news,
Join us tonight
at 6.
Okay, this is the 11th anniversary of the Soweto riots, so the obvious question to ask is, when is reform going to happen in South Africa?
Apartheid is in the process of being ended. There's one more aspect of apartheid which has to go, and that's the Group Areas Act, which determines where people should live in terms of racial identities.
On that point, though, that apartheid is already breaking up, the recent elections saw a marked swing back to the right wing, didn't they?
Well, I think that gives you an indication of how difficult it is to replace the system when you have a backlash from the right wing, which, may I say, has been caused by a lot of interference from outside countries.
You blame sanctions and so forth for this swing to the right wing, do you?
Well, not entirely, but it's gone a long way to driving people to the right wing, because people feel threatened. And unless you bring people out of the corner, you're not going to solve the problems of South Africa.
When then can South African blacks expect to be able to vote?
That's an impossible answer to give you. But what I can say is that there's no quick fix to South Africa. There's no magic wand which people could wave and come to an instant solution. It's going to take time, and it's going to take energy, and it's going to take a lot of understanding from the outside world.
Hello, I'm Jane Button. Tonight I'll be reporting on a plan by Coal & Allied to greatly expand its operations at Catherine Hill Bay. The company hopes that the new venture will help it break into the lucrative new European market.
For all that is,
join us tonight
at 6.
This year's advertising campaign for Matara will be big and colourful. For the past 6 weeks, artist Ian MacArthur has been travelling across the Newcastle district, visiting primary schools and community groups, with brushes and paints galore. Today it was the students of Waratah's Orthopaedic School who helped create just 2 of the 40 colourful masterpieces that will be proudly positioned on the sides of government buses from next month. Ian says it's the first time such a local event will be advertised in this way, and judging by the enthusiasm and creativity of the young artists, there'll be more in store when Matara opens the first week in October.
That's it.
This is the section of freeway where the girl was found just a few kilometres north of the toll gates. A passing truck driver, Max Hannigan, saw a car stop at about 8:30 last night and then saw a girl dumped into this drain. He says it was about 3 or 4 minutes before he got to the girl, and luckily she stayed in the drain and didn't wander onto the nearby busy freeway.
Well, it's only a matter of 3 feet on the expressway, and I'd say if it had been raining and 3 cars come up, 4 cars overtaken, we'd never see it.
Max says the girl was screaming and shivering by the time he put her into safety of his cabin, but she calmed down after a few minutes.
When we picked her up, she said that her mother put her out there because she didn't want her anymore, and just to teach her a lesson.
The girl's mother, Vanessa Canavan, 21 of Main Road, Cardiff, appeared in Hornsby Court today, charged with exposing a child which could be exposed to harm or injury and self-administering the prohibited drug amphetamines. She's been remanded to reappear in court on Monday morning, and she's been refused bail. Miss Canavan's de facto husband, 27-year-old Paul Kennard, has also been charged with exposing a child to danger. He will appear in court on July 7th. Max Hannigan says he was shocked when he found the girl.
In my reaction, I just couldn't believe it. People could be like that, really.
So did you get the license number or did...
More and more people are finding More than 100 permanent residents, van owners and locals attended a meeting this morning to discuss their position. The residents and van owners are incensed over a council decision to remove all vans while the park is upgraded and then to allow only tourists back in. They say the council has left them uninformed and has acted without considering that they have only until the end of the month to find elsewhere to live. The council says they will assist in moving the affected residents, and it maintains that the park should never have been used for this purpose. Today, feelings ran hot when Alderman Lanham and Deputy Mayor Geddes explained why they couldn't stay. The council is not entirely united behind the decision, however, as the appearance of Alderman John Tate showed. He came out in support of the residents and took the provocative step of making public the voting order of the confidential meeting where the council decision was made.
Against the motion, just me. And I urge you to keep on with this matter because right is on your side, legislation is your own side, and the council is wrong.
Trades Hall Council today also said itself firmly behind the residents. Secretary Peter Barrack recommended they stand firm.
We would support, if the residents are to set up picket lines, then I'm sure they'll have the backing of the trade union movement to back those picket lines.
What if forceful evictions are in order?
We'll seek to prevent those.
What does the council intend to do if Peter Barrack and Trades Hall Council carry through their threats of physically opposing the evictions?
Well, the council will have to consider its position at that stage, but the standard of the park will deteriorate and that won't be fair for the people who occupy it.
Will the council cut off electricity, water, sewerage?
I can't say what the council will do.
Newcastle's Lord Mayor, John McNaughton, later reaffirmed there would be no provision for permanent residents after the upgrading, saying that it was state government policy for waterfront areas such as this to be treated as tourist reserves. The residents are now planning to approach Minister for Local Government, Janice Crozio, to try to persuade her to overrule the council's decision.
With whom they do business. Now, how can you...
In an interesting match, St George in the red were first to score through this man Graham Fletcher. They led 1-0 after 16 minutes and went to the break with that scoreline. Apia evened it up through Paul Wade after 50 minutes, but were in arrears 2 minutes later after Fletcher had scored again. But it was to be 2-2 at full time, with Wade also making it 2 for the day in the 60th minute. The penalty shootout gave the match to the Leichhardt-based club. They won that 3-1.
Residents fighting against the proposal for BHP to build a mine ventilation shaft at Bolton Point were armed for battle at tonight's council meeting. Despite a notice in the gallery, the angry residents made their objections known.
Could be arranged and then tell them to get back into it.
Recommendation that granting BHP consent to construct the mine ventilation shaft and exhaust fan facility. The council also added that the Minister for Planning and Environment, Bob Carr, would hold a public inquiry into longwall mining, the major concern of the residents. A notice to rescind the motion was moved for the matter to be brought before tonight's meeting. The rescission motion was put forward by Alderman Welsh and after a lengthy and loud debate was defeated 8-5.
What does the Progress Group think of Council's decision?
We're not very happy with it at all. It was a decision by the Labor Alderman Caucus Group which voted against the decisions or the wishes of the residents of the area.
Has the Progress Group lost the fight?
No, we haven't lost the fight at all. We're taking our fight to the ministers.